You're not getting tired yet?
No, we're continuing to read Called to Serve, Autobiographies of Don and Doris Ann Roth. This is from part 1, which is the first half of the book that Dad wrote. And I am reading chapter 10, Vietnam Evacuation, April 1975. In the decade that we spent in the Orient, 1965 to 1975, I thought I had some unique experiences. However, the events of April 1975 constituted the most dramatic and eventful period in my life. I do not envision anything in the future that could match it. On Friday, April 25, 1975, I assisted in a mass evacuation of more than 430 South Vietnamese, probably around
Dossiet? What?
South Vietnamese. Probably around 300 of whom were Seventh-day Adventists. This represented persons from our Saigon Adventist Hospital, the Vietnam Mission Office, the Vietnam Publishing House, the Saigon Elementary School, and some from this community. We left in Vietnam most of our pastors and teachers, nearly all of our literature evangelists, all of whom chose to stay in Vietnam. All had a choice, leave or stay. Everyone who left the country did so of his or her own free will. Those who remained behind stayed because of elderly family members or other good reasons. Following is what I wrote at the time of this experience. Written in Guam and in Malaysia, April and May 1975. I write this in the press room of the administration building of the United States Navy on the island of Guam. Today we hope that our group will be processed through immigration and then will be on their way to the mainland of the United States of America. Our group is part of nearly 30,000 refugees.
They were Americans that were in Vietnam.
No, these were South Vietnamese people. They were natives of Vietnam. Our group is part of nearly 30,000 refugees who left the Republic of Vietnam in the last week. They will all stay here until they receive clearance to enter the country as legal immigrants and then will be transferred to many different places in the USA. 3 military camps will receive refugees in the USA, 2 in California and 1 in Florida. I plan to leave for Singapore at 4 o'clock Thursday morning, May 1, and will get back in time to participate.
May 1, what year?
1975.
Okay.
And will get back in time to participate in the farewell for our division president, Elder Paul H. Eldridge. He and his wife, Retha, will not leave Singapore until the end of June, but we wanted to have the farewell when all staff members could attend. Departure from Saigon.
I think he must have died. I don't know.
Oh, I think Elder Eldridge has died, probably many years ago. I've been to Saigon many times since 1965 when we arrived to work in the Far Eastern Division. When I arrived on Sunday, April 20, 1975, this was my last visit. Events since then have proved this to be true. I arrived in Saigon on a commercial Air Vietnam jet from Singapore and left on a United States Air Force cargo jet for the island of Guam. I have no, quote, chop in my passport indicating that I ever left the nation of South Vietnam that year. You may wonder why we bothered to take these Vietnamese from their country. The answer is very simple: to save their lives. All of the people we brought out were, quote, marked people. They had all worked with or for Americans for many years. They all would probably have been executed or tortured when the communists took over. Thus, when I saw the country doomed, I dropped everything and started to work on plans to evacuate
the
people.
Communists
Yeah.
still ahead of...
Well, not in that area. I sent out the first person, a Vietnamese nurse, on Monday, April 21. I learned the process of evacuation and started to work on getting this done. On Wednesday, the hospital's Vietnamese leaders told us that if their wives and children were gone, they could concentrate on their work better and continue operating the hospital. I volunteered to take out all of the wives and children, a total of 36 persons, 3 of them pregnant. Because of this, I insisted that at least 2 nurses go along, since I had no expertise in delivering babies. So 2 nurses joined the group. Luckily, no new babies arrived on the flight. I did the paperwork, which is a story in itself, and told everyone on the list to be ready in 2 hours' time. After dark, in a hospital ambulance, I took the group through the main gate of the Tan Son Nhut Airport. There were thousands of people at the airport, all eager to get Tan Son Nhut Airport.
Wow.
There were thousands of people at the airport, all eager to get on an evacuation flight. So it took a long time to process this mass of people and get them ready for flights. At last, at 4 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, April 24, we boarded a C-141 cargo jet with 180 other refugees. What a flight this proved to be, one that took 8 hours. That also is a story in itself.
Went to the United States?
No, I think they went to Guam.
Guam.
Yeah. I terminated my work in Guam with the immense satisfaction of knowing that I had played a part in the saving of lives. Let me go back now and detail some of the main events. In a period of 3 days, April 23 to 25, I joined 9 other overseas workers in evacuating more than 300 hospital, publishing house, mission workers, and their dependents from war-battered Saigon.
Who wrote all this?
Dad did.
Dad.
The evacuees represent nearly all of the national leaders of the Saigon Adventist Hospital, as well as the other units for the Vietnam mission.
That was sad.
The Saigon Adventist Hospital closed its doors to patients on Thursday, April 24. Most schools in the mission had already...
What year?
This is in 1975.
75.
Most schools in the mission had already been shut down. The publishing house limped along during the month of April, mostly to keep workers occupied in their minds off the war situation. Lincoln, you can come down. They finally terminated their work on April 24. Evacuation process. The evacuation process was complicated. Lists had to be prepared and approved by the United States Embassy in Saigon. An affidavit presented to each sponsor indicated that expenses in connection with the resettlement of each Vietnamese would be covered. Then each person had to be placed on a manifest for the outgoing aircraft. All of this meant waiting in long lines, many, many hours in the hot tropical sun. For our group, I bypassed the long lines and got approval within a few minutes of time because I had learned the procedures required by the American Embassy. There's a photo here, captioned, Dawn top left, looking over the plight of Vietnamese refugees waiting for a plane to take them out of the country. So there's the photo.
Wow.
Hey, buddy, you want to come here and read with us? Okay, come on up. I guess not. With all the paperwork finished, we set a time with the groups for final departure. In each case, we took them from their homes to the airport in a hospital ambulance. This helped a great deal in getting through the front gates of the airport.
So Dad's talking now.
Dad wrote all this.
Yeah.
Then the long wait started. I arrived with my group of 36 women and children at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night, April 23. I took the entire group into the bowling alley of the Recreation Center of DAO, which stands for Defense Attaché Office. Here we found at least 1,000 other refugees sprawled over every available square inch of space. In the middle of the night, I slept for a couple hours on one of the hard wooden lanes of the bowling alley with my head on my camera bag and my legs dangling in the opposite return ball gutter. Wow. The
Opposite return what?
ball gutter in a bowling alley. The long delay in getting on the flight that night was due to the mass evacuation of the Vietnamese staff of the DAO office. They had priority because of a long association with Americans through the years. I typed up my own manifest,
DAO.
DAO, which stands for Defense Attaché Office. I typed up my own manifest for the flight and later helped type up the manifests of other groups. Pre-departure scare. The only real scare that we had during the long airport wait occurred early in the morning. While in the bowling alley to check on the physical needs of my group of 36 women and children, I heard a commotion outside the building. A very high fence separated the DAO compound from that of the South Vietnamese Army.
A very what?
High fence.
Oh.
Separated the DAO compound from that of the South Vietnamese Army compound.
And where was this?
This is at the airport in Saigon, Vietnam.
Oh.
As I rushed out to check on the commotion, I saw United States Marines in civilian clothing pushing back a small number of ARVN, I'm not sure what that stands for, soldiers who had grenades in their hands. They had seen a number of military-age Vietnamese boys, including one from our group, going through the evacuation lines. Becoming very angry with the United States military, they tried to lob the grenades over the fence into the staging area, including the bowling alley. The Marines pushed back the soldiers, sealed off the area by erecting another fence, and put guards on duty for the rest of the night. The long night passed and the blazing sun came up on Thursday. Early in the morning, flight number 88 was being processed. Our flight number was 107. Hour after hour went by. The line seemed to diminish very slowly. Finally, at 3 o'clock, I heard our flight number. But then another long wait came as we stood in line on the tennis court. Delays came because of scares at nearby Bien Ho Airport. Rockets fell
Nearby what? Oh,
it's another airport nearby. Rockets fell during the night. Baggage handlers walked off their jobs in sheer exhaustion. Some buses shunted off for other duties. At long last, we began the process of getting on the flight. Each person carried just one piece of luggage. The baggage received a thorough inspection. Metal detectors checked out each evacuee. A last count made sure that the right person was on the departure list for each flight.
Who wrote all this?
Dad did.
Wow.
We then boarded a bus and headed for the waiting aircraft. Another scare. After we boarded the bus, we had another real scare at the gate near the civilian terminal. A policeman on our bus saw one of our teenage boys, the son of our mission president, and motioned him to come forward. My heart sank as I saw the policeman looking over the lad's ID card and papers. The policeman looked at me and smiled, but I did not smile back, and then sent the lad back to his seat. The policeman then got off the bus. An ARVN soldier then boarded the bus and escorted us to the plane. As the bus arrived within a few feet of the aircraft, I got up and stood behind the soldier. He turned his head slightly and said to me in perfect English, "U.S. money for the policeman and me, or else the boy does not get on the plane." This shook me momentarily, but I recovered quickly enough to thrust my hand into my pocket and bring out a $20 bill. As I stood beside the soldier outside the bus, I slipped the bill into his greedy hand. When the lad got off the bus, the soldier waved him on, gave me a brief salute, and returned to the bus. Because of a shortage of baggage handlers, I helped a United States Marine load the bags into the rear of the cargo plane. With the last bag loaded, the huge back door slammed shut. I helped fasten the luggage down, and the jet started to move. So here's a photo titled "Don's Group on a Bus en route to the waiting aircraft at the Saigon airport." The group consisted of women and children. Flight to Guam. I looked around inside the plane and leaned up against the back wall. The scene scared me. About 40 people were in webbed seats lined up on each side of the plane facing each other. The rest of the people, 110, sat on the floor, wall-to-wall people. Nobody on the floor had seat belts. I saw only 2 small containers of water and 1 restroom. What a flight this is going to be, I thought to myself as I looked over the passengers. So here's a photo titled, "Here is the scene inside the military aircraft which flew from Saigon to Guam. Nearly everyone was seated on the floor of the cargo plane." Wow.
Saigon to Guam.
To Guam. So there is, I hope I got it.
What year was
centered.
this?
1975, April 25, I think.
Whoa.
I found a spot near the front to sit down. I sprawled out on my back as the jet prepared for takeoff. I raised my head slightly to watch the people as we left the ground. 36 of our refugees took their first plane ride, a very traumatic experience for every one of them. They were leaving their home country, perhaps never to see it again. The shock of it showed on their faces. With a huge jet airborne, I knew immediately that the lone Air Force officer in the cargo section needed some help. He handed me a stack of motion sickness bags, and I proceeded to give them out. I soon started making regular trips to the restroom to deposit the filled bags. At one point, someone called out to me, first in Vietnamese and then in English. I turned around and saw that about 15 feet away, a scared little lad had his pants down, about to answer his pants down, about to answer the call of nature. He needed to go to the bathroom. The duty officer had failed to announce the location of the restroom. I made a mad dash for the child and held a little plastic bag for him, just in time to save an unnecessary puddle in the middle of the floor. This no-frills flight included no food. The cold water in the containers ran out within an hour. Dehydration had set in due to the long wait in the sun with no liquid, but I never heard one word of complaint from anyone during the long 7-hour flight to Guam. I became acquainted with the flight crew very quickly. The captain, a youngish-looking 28-year-old career airman, came back to the cargo area and made a short tour with me. He asked me to do a census of the group, number of children, women, Americans, etc. I received a personal thrill as the captain invited me to the cockpit area and let me sit in the middle jump seat. I watched carefully as our huge 4-engine jet winged its way 30,000 feet over the Philippine Islands. Later, he invited 2 of the young Vietnamese lads to the same place, an experience they will never forget. So I have a thought here. I remember at least twice when I was on Pan Am 747 planes, I was invited by the pilot to come up to the cockpit, and they gave me a tour. I got to sit in one of the seats. They gave me a...
Where was this?
This was in one of the flights from Singapore to the U.S. and gave me like pilot's wings that I could pin on my shirt.
Wow.
Arrival in Guam. At long last, the flight reached Guam. It was midnight for us, but about 2 o'clock in the morning in Guam when we landed at the Naval Air Station and found ourselves in a huge aircraft hangar. All of the refugees were amazed to see literally scores of Marines, soldiers, civilian volunteers, and others handing out cold drinks, soup, baby diapers, bottles, and other items for the comfort of the refugees. Nearly 1,000 evacuees had squeezed into the hangar, so we had to await our turn in the arrival process. This included baggage inspection, immigration, and filling out of several forms for all immigrants. Hardly anyone in our group had passports, visas, or anything else of the kind. I was the only one on the plane who legally entered Guam with a United States passport. By 5 o'clock in the morning, they had taken our group by bus to a revived naval hospital annex.
This is Dad writing.
This is Dad writing everything, called Camp Asan. Before I left Guam, this camp housed more than 8,000 persons. Because of non-occupation for 3 years, Navy men worked desperately to clean up each building before a new busload arrived. We found a place in Barracks 508, spread blankets provided by the Navy.
Papa,
You went poo-poo?
yeah.
Oh, high five, buddy!
Where? with
you went poo-poo in your pants. Oh, okay. Go back to Grandma.
Grandpa, what happened that?
Yeah, okay. Grandpa and Great Grandma are reading. We'll come out in a few minutes.
Where's that?
Okay. That's an extension cord.
Why?
Okay, go see Grandma. Go see Grandma.
Come on, Lincoln.
Okay.
Where's that?
That's an extension cord.
A sister.
Yes, right.
Lincoln.
Okay, go see Grandma. Go see Grandma.
We're gonna change your pants.
take him out there.
Grandma.
He wanted his own way.
For the eternity of time will be recorded on this video on YouTube that Lincoln went poo-poo in his pants. Okay. We found a place in Barracks 508, spread blankets provided by the Navy on the hard cement floor, and within minutes, most of the children fell asleep. I checked on all of the 36 persons in my group, made sure they were all well situated, and made note of the location of each family group. So here is a photo. On Guam, the military put up tents for the use of refugees while waiting for transportation to the USA.
Your dad had
Whew, boy, this is a long
quite
chapter.
a life, huh?
Oh, 2 more pages. Quite a life. An important call home to Singapore. At that point, I had only one thought in mind: to find a telephone so he could call you. So I could call my family in Singapore. My family was very reluctant to see me leave the previous Sunday for Saigon, but they knew that God would protect me on the journey. I knew that Doris, Dan, and the rest of the Far Eastern Division staff would be eager to know about my current situation. I walked to the camp entrance. A big, burly black Marine blocked.
Where's this?
This is in Guam, on a U.S. Air Force base. A big, burly black Marine blocked my way. He informed me that I was a, quote, refugee, just like all the rest in camp. I showed him my United States passport, but this made no impression. I took my bag back to the barracks and then returned to the entrance. I walked to a dark place away from the main gate and crawled over the fence. Wow. I felt like an academy student sneaking off campus in the middle of the night. I hailed a bus that had just brought a load of refugees to the camp and asked him to drop me off at the nearest telephone. I found that Guam had no reverse charge arrangement, so I had to register at a small hotel about 2 miles from the camp before I could make that important telephone call to Singapore. I then dropped in exhaustion on the hard bed without even bothering to take off my clothing. After a 2-hour rest, I arose and went back to the camp to take care of my group. This started a 5-day marathon of events. We tried to find all of our Seventh-day Adventist groups on the island. They eventually found housing in 7 different camps. Within 48 hours, all of the other groups arrived with our American Adventist sponsors. Ralph Watts, Southeast Asia Union President, Romy I. Gaynor, Union Treasurer, Harvey Rudisale, Saigon Adventist Hospital Administrator.
Dan,
Yes.
Diane's asking a question.
Okay,
Where's the diesel at Costco, on the right or the left?
left.
The left.
Dr. Bruce Branson, Loma Linda,
What'd she say?
asked which side of the Costco gas station was diesel. Dr. Bruce Branson, Loma Linda University surgeon. Dr. Jim Simpson, Loma Linda University surgical resident. Dr. George Weissman, orthopedic surgeon, and his wife Jean from Loma Linda University. Weissman. Royce Thompson, Southeast Asia Union Mission Hospital Coordinator, and Dr. Stuart Schenkel, Loma Linda University internist and Chief of Staff at the Saigon Adventist Hospital. We made the small hotel near Camp Asan headquarters for our short stay on the island. The Guam Mission, with Palmer Wick as president, and the Guam Clinic workers gave us terrific assistance during all that week. Loma Linda University made plans to receive and house in their gymnasium all of the refugee groups we had taken out of Vietnam until they could be dispersed to various parts of the country. The General Conference made plans for transportation. Clinton Schenkel, director of the Far Eastern Division Lay Activities Department, stayed on Guam to handle affairs, while Ralph Watts and Robert Grady, Lay Activities Director of the Southeast Asia Union Mission, went to the United States to assist in the arrival plans and arrangements. By midweek, things seemed fairly well under control. On Wednesday, we received the go-ahead to process our group through immigration. Each group went by bus to Anderson Air Force Base, where they were put in isolation at Tin City,
Where?
Anderson Air Force Base, where they were put in isolation at, quote, Tin City, that's a nickname, a former housing area for pilots on B-52 bombers during the Vietnam War.
Oh,
The next stop, mainland USA, a 24-hour jet flight. Wow. The trip back to Singapore. In the meantime, I felt it was past time to get home. The previous week, I'd arranged for the American ambassador to Singapore, Edwin Kronk, to visit our Far Eastern Academy and the division compound. Elder Paul Eldridge, our division president, took care of this visit. Plans were finalized for Pastor and Mrs. Eldridge's farewell. The division kindly postponed the event from Sunday to Thursday so that I could be there. I arrived home just in time, just 45 minutes before we needed to arrive at the hotel for the dinner.
wow.
Doris had spent half the day waiting for me at the airport, but had nearly given up hope of my arriving in time. I am finishing this letter at our mission office in Kuala Lumpur en route to Fraser's Hill with Doris for a few days of recuperation. Before we leave this lovely mountain resort area, we wanted to share these experiences with all of you relatives and friends back home. I do wish to convey to you the fact that I am under the deep conviction that God led in every step of this evacuation process. I could take dozens of pages to outline to you stories of how God opened doors at every turn. Without his help, this could not have been accomplished. I readily admit that this has been a rather traumatic experience for me personally. I sat on the Pan Am 747 jet flight out of Guam en route to Manila, and I thought about what we had done. We had effectively reduced the membership of the Far Eastern Division by 300 persons. Our job here really is to increase membership, yet in the matter of hours, the opposite took place. On the other hand, we actually saved the lives of these 300 persons. Most of them would have faced almost certain execution or severe persecution. Thanks for enduring this long epistle about a major event in the lives of many people in this part of the world. Signed,
And what part of the world is it?
D.A. Roth, Vietnam. Okay, that is the end of that chapter.